What if an unexpected airborne injury ended your military career? What if after you were medically discharged, you began to travel the world in search of a purpose and that next step into the unknown? What if you had a roommate that urged you to write a piece of content for his blog, only to find that you really enjoyed it and the audience recognized your talent from the very start? What if an opportunity to write a piece for a long-standing military magazine presented itself and you put your stories out there for the world to see on a global scale? Meet Heath Hansen, veteran and journalist with Soldier of Fortune magazine, as we talk about his military career and journey to becoming a writer and voice within the military and veteran community. This is Veteran Success Story. Welcome to another episode of Veteran Success Story. Today, I'm joined with Heath Hansen, veteran, writer, and journalist with Soldier of Fortune magazine. Yes, that's Soldier of Fortune. So Heath was somebody that I met during my book tour, and somebody that I told him at the time, I was like, hey, let's come around because I've been a fan of Soldier of Fortune. I mean, ever since I was a young private in the military. And I love some of the stories that they put out there. And Heath Hansen, I mean, he's one of the other reporters out there. He keeps it real, he keeps it raw, and he's somebody who follows the real story. So I'm not going to hold it up any longer because we got into the conversation, but check out some of his work. I'll put stuff in the description, links and stuff. And if you like this episode, follow, subscribe, whichever one's the free one or whichever one, is the platform that you're on. But I'm trying to keep this channel free for everybody. So the more subscribers that I have on there, the more of a chance that I can continue to do so in order to make this into something to where I don't have to inundate it with ads. So also tell a friend, maybe do a remix or put something up on your site to mention it. So every little bit helps. So thank you in that, because it wouldn't be where it's at right now if it wasn't for the people that are listening in and helping out in that way. So thank you for that. And without taking up any more of your time, welcome to yet another Veteran Success Story. Welcome to another Veteran Success Story. Today, I'm joined with Heath Hansen, who is a journalist, writer. You also do private security on the side, but what we're really looking at is you work with and publish a bunch of articles with Soldier of Fortune, which, it's just wild because, and you had said it before we got on here too, is I remember, I think it was getting to Fort Bragg, one of the PXs, and this is going to date me, I guess, a little bit, but they were still in the print magazine version of Soldier and Fortune. And I know that media is going through a bit of a transitionary phase right now, but it's crazy to think of, opening that up, and then here we are talking to one of the featured reporters and stuff over there. But no, Heath, it's great to have you on the show, man.
It's great to be here. Thanks for the invite. Yeah, Soldier Fortune used to be, I think, only print, and then eventually kind of moved into digital. Who knows? Maybe they'll bring print back. That'd be cool to be in an actual physical magazine. But yeah, for now it's just digital. But they've got quite a bit of followers for sure on social media.
Oh, that's definitely, as well as when there was stuff with the book end. And what I know you had interviewed me on the book end of things for a book review on the one I have back here, but it was it was funny to be talking to somebody from Soldier of Fortune when I had first gotten to Bragg. That was something that I had looked at and been like, wow, look at, this is crazy. Some of this stuff that you guys were covering in there and the lineage behind, I know Nick Rowe and stuff. There was a lot of stuff that went there. John Stryker-Meyer did some writing there. Just that lineage end, and then some of the guys coming back and stuff too, when they saw the article pop up on there, like, holy crap, like the books in Soldier of Fortune, like that's just crazy, man.
At one point years ago, I had actually dated a girl whose father was a Vietnam veteran, Green Beret. That was MacV, SOG. And he had actually been, his photograph was in Soldier of Fortune from the 80s, because he eventually was a DEA agent working in the what is it, the Golden Triangle. I think he was in Thailand, and it was just crazy that yeah, years later, I'm writing in Soldier of Fortune, but yeah, um, yeah, it's a big name, especially kind of for the more old school, and they're trying to, I guess, incorporate like GWAT vets now, guys from our generation, and it's growing. It's crazy, like how the growth is going now over the past few months. It's just 1,000 every few weeks. It's another 1,000 people, followers, whatever.
Well, I think there's really, it says something for real hunger for a news outlet that covers something. You guys cover stuff down into depth, and it's not inundated by, uh, and I'm going to be careful here not to say any names because some of these larger ones are out there and they're not publishing everything. Or, man, like the biggest one I see right now is that they're publishing, I guess, what we could really sell as content. It's not actual news, it's not a journalistic view of things, and it's
It's
clickbait.
very much just what can we get clicks with,
Yeah.
and you kind of read some of this stuff, or it's just like a headline, and then you try to read, and there's just no content. It's just the headline, right? Yeah. So Soldier Fortune, I think, tries to actually, Susan is the owner and like chief editor. Um, she just won't run it if there's no like meat kind of to
Yeah.
it. She'll just be like, hey, bring it back when you have more. Or I've had a couple, two, three, four times when I wrote something up, and she was like, I can't run this. I'm like, oh man, we'll get, like it's interesting, right? But she's like, yeah, but it's not. You got to be able to verify some of this stuff. So yeah, it has happened a couple times, very rarely, but yeah, a couple times of the dozens and dozens and dozens that I've written. Occasionally it does happen that she's like, yeah, I can't run that, and it's fine. I mean, it happens.
That's refreshing, if anything, because a lot of times out there you'll have them like rush the story through the newsroom. All right, let's get it to print. Like, let's go, and it's not done. It's not a complete product. It's not a proper piece of journalism. So to have that, and I think there's a hunger for that too. I think things are kind of kind of changing in that side of things. The people are realizing that X amount is fake out there, and they're like, hey, we want the real story here. And it's starting to be clear to see.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's kind of political because there's people that are like they want what they want to hear,
Yep.
right? But then there's people that want everything, and it's kind of like, yeah, I mean, it's good because you want to focus for who you're writing for, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the same time, still tell the truth. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I was talking to somebody recently about like fallen soldiers and taking pictures of not the bodies, but the coffins that are draped with the American flag. And some people are like, no, that's terrible. You shouldn't be showing that. And I'm like, I totally disagree. Like showing a flag draped coffin, in my opinion, it's kind of a nice way to show the reality of war.
Yeah.
But other people are like, no, they should just show the dead bodies, that have been blown apart. And I'm like, no, I don't agree with that. I mean, that's everything, right? But I feel like it can be disrespectful to the fighters that have been killed. But that's kind of in the middle. That's kind of the middle ground between the two, because it's a dead body and they're serving the United States, right? But it's like it's the reality of war. People die, right? So yeah, there's people like on both sides that, yeah, you kind of got to find the middle ground. But yeah, I remember reading an article back in the beginning of the GWAT, and I think it was like maybe it was George Bush's mother that was talking about it, but she said no, it's inappropriate. And I just remember thinking, I don't know. I think it's kind of an honest and you know I don't know what's the word. It's not like it's not dishonorable towards them, and it's not too graphic, right? But it shows the truth. Yeah.
I actually faced that recently. That episode actually, it really hit me hard. That's the one that and I know these are pushed out to when they air. But it was an episode with Scott Deluzio, who he ended up losing his brother over in Afghanistan. They were both serving together, and
Oh,
putting that story and then presenting it in a way. I was putting together the introductory, the trailer, if you will. And that's when it
mhm.
just really started to hit me, the full gravity of what I was presenting. And I was like, oh my God, man, like, I hope I get this right. I hope that I can honor his brother in that way, but also bring that story forward. Because this is someone who's out there within the veteran space doing stuff, and to be able
Uh,
to present it, but in a way that was honorable and honored the memory of his brother. And just that full gravity of it really hit me in editing and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, like it put things in perspective to a really, just a really real way. And I know I've done that in the book and stuff, but it just, something about it hit me differently. And it if anything, it's when talking with those stories or those people that it's made me think about it differently.
yeah, yeah. I remember hearing because you remember Pat Tillman and his brother. They both served in the same. I don't know if it was the same company, probably the same company, but different platoon. But yeah, I remember when Tillman was or Pat Tillman was killed. Just thinking, damn man, his brother must be going through a lot right now. And it's crazy because when I was 82nd Airborne in Afghanistan, I was Charlie Company, and my brother was also 2nd Battalion 504 Bravo Company. We were there together in a different company. And I remember I was about to roll out on a mission, and somebody was mentioning, like one of the squad leaders was talking to the PL or to the platoon sergeant or something, and they were like, "Hey, did you hear about Bravo Company last night? They got into a big tick, and some guys got wounded and blah blah blah." And I was like, "Oh shit!" I remember thinking, "Dude, I hope my brother's all right."
Yeah.
But it's a pretty unique situation because not a lot of guys in your company have a or in your your battalion have an actual brother serving alongside them.
Yep.
So yeah, that must have been yeah a tough one to like put together and try to remain totally respectful. But yeah, you understand the depth.
Yeah, it really does. And matter of fact, you cover a lot of this hard stuff and everything in Soldier of Fortune. I mean, you're constantly facing that end of things and presenting the story the right way, but also in some of these, in a respectful way too. But let's actually back up a little bit and talk about kind of your path to service within the 82nd. I know, a fellow 82nd guy. You were 504. It's 508. I was also 504 at one time, and then I can't remember the last one. I think it was
Nope.
507. Yeah. Very brief time. I was supposed to be cut over to Lurs. There was a whole. I have a little bit of a gray area within.
Lurs, what is that? Long range reconnaissance?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
18th Airborne Corps for a little bit of time had them, and then
Interesting.
yep.
Yeah, man, it was crazy because I went. I don't know how it happened, but when I started with SWIC, I was an 18 X-ray trying to do the special forces and everything, and I was doing okay. Like I wasn't a standout, but I was getting all my navigation points. I was
Yep.
doing well, but I got injured, and they were like, "Yeah, dude, you can't continue, but we'll roll you back to the next class." And I was like, "I'm done, man. I don't want to do this." And like all the I mean, in SWIC, they were like having a. Do you remember the gig pit? I think you were 18 X-ray, right?
I was, and I can relate 1,000% because there was a period to where they were literally breaking people off just to break people off, and you'd have huge swaths of people in Medhold.
So yeah, I was like, dude, I was a winter class. I think it was in December, and I was like, man, they kept. There was points where the top of the gig pit would freeze, but then they would make us jump in and then do flutter kicks, and then we would have to go do land nav in that, wearing that. And I was like, dude, this sucks, man. I don't just send me to the line. So yeah, I was like, nah, I'm good. Just give me worldwide assignment, just whatever needs of the army. And I ended up getting a couple weeks later, a letter saying I was going to 82nd Airborne. So I packed my duffel bag and I went half a mile down the road to the 504. And And then they were, oh no, I went to the 325, which is about a mile down the road.
Okay.
And then
Yep.
so I'm getting the in processing for 325, and they're like, hey, where's Hansen? I was like, right here, Sergeant. Like, hey, your orders are messed up. You were supposed to go 504. So I go to 1504, and I was like, damn, dude, I thought I was going to 504. That's what they had told me. And then 3 weeks later, I was 1504. 3 weeks later, like, where's Hansen? I was like, here, Sergeant. Like, hey, your orders are screwed up. You're going to 504. And I was like, oh, okay. And they're like, you guys are deploying next month. And I was like, what? Well, yeah, you're going to Afghanistan. I was like, oh shit. So yeah, so I was like, all right, whatever. I got my stuff ready, and I was literally a month later in Afghanistan. Um, so yeah, I did my year there, and saw. I don't want to pretend like I'm some Rambo that saw like countless firefights and raids and stuff, but I saw a little bit here and there. I've been in firefights and IED attacks, and I've done some raids, and I don't even know, countless patrols, just so many patrols. And yeah, did my year out there, saw some stuff, came back, and then yeah, trained for a year, and then we were in Iraq. We did about 14 months in Iraq. And yeah, again, just saw some stuff, did my thing, and I was happy because I did. A lot of guys you talk to that go in the military are like, oh, I didn't get anything I wanted. I was lied to. I was this. I was that. But I'm one of the few guys that was like, when I joined, I wanted to be airborne. I wanted to be infantry. I wanted to go to Iraq, and I wanted to go Afghanistan. So I everything I wanted, I got. And you know how it is. Some guys only go to Iraq, or they only go to Afghanistan. They'll do 2 or 3 deployments to one or the other.
Yep.
Or some guys will get sent to like a training unit, like a JRTC unit or the NTC unit. Guys are like, dude, I signed for 5 years, and all I did was go to a training unit to get guys ready for combat. So yeah, I'm happy. I'm very happy with how everything turned out for my career. I did everything I wanted to, and I'm in one piece. You know what I mean? I had a parachuting injury. I fractured both my legs, but
So
whatever. I can still walk. You know what I'm saying? So it's all right.
just a rough landing.
Yeah, man. It was a nighttime combat equipment, and I was the 240 gunner.
Oh,
And I'm a big guy. I'm about, well, at the time I was probably 6'5" and probably 235 pounds.
yeah, that's a
And
big
then,
dude.
with the helmet and the body armor and the 240 Bravo, when you're jumping the gun and all the ammunition, dude, it's a lot of weight. It was probably over 300 pounds of stuff that I was carrying.
Yeah, you're hitting max weight.
I hit the ground. It hurt. It really hurt. And yeah, I can't. It was funny because I continued the mission. I completed the mission, but I was telling my squad leader, like, my legs are hurting. They're killing me. They're like, well, whatever. You can walk, so you're fine. I was like, all right, whatever. It was like 2 or 3 weeks later, they had given me an X-ray. Like, we don't see anything, but it kept hurting. And finally, they recommended me for a bone scan. And when I did the bone scan, they saw the fractures. They were about halfway through my bone. And yeah, they never healed. I don't know. They just never healed. And yeah, whatever. But I still, it's funny because I signed for 5 years as a SWIC guy. Um, you have to do, it's a 5-year minimum.
Yep.
So I ended up getting med boarded out, but instead of doing 5 years, I did like 4 years and 11 months. So I still like basically I did my whole time. Right. And then I completed 2 deployments. I did the full 2 deployments. It wasn't like I went home early or anything. So really, it was just like an extra month of training time that I missed, at the very end of my career. But who cares? It doesn't matter.
Well, and I know your adrenaline and stuff is so high when you do a jump like that and everything. So I've heard of other injuries happening like that to where they don't show up later, and I know how it is too, where they're it's the 82nd. They're, hey, suck it up, take some water and ibuprofen, drive on.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah, a little
hey,
Motrin. Yeah.
yeah,
But yeah,
exactly.
but like I said, I mean, compared to like some of my buddies, some of the battlefield injuries I saw with IEDs and guys getting shot, um, I'm like, dude, yeah, that's nothing. A couple broken legs is like, it's not a big deal, right? In the grand scope of things, right? But yeah, I mean, I'm very happy with how it all turned out, and I had a career that I can, brag about to most civilians now, so it's fine. I feel like among other paratroopers, I'm just a regular paratrooper, right? There was nothing special about me, but the other 99% of the US population, I got some good stories.
Well, I mean,
You know what
there's
I mean?
something different about a paratrooper anyway, as it is. I'm start yeah, whether we're special or not, in one way or another. So how did going from that, like, I mean, you had a path afterwards, like post service, and there's a little bit of a gap in between that led to Soldier of Fortune. What happened there? How did you end up, like, what does that look like in between there, and how did you end up working for Soldier of Fortune?
Yeah, man. So I got out April 2009, um, and immediately just jumped into college. I was just like, hey man, I want to get this degree. So yeah, April. So I think I immediately jumped into summer classes. As like after a month or so,
Yeah.
I jumped into the summer courses, and yeah, I started working on my business financial services degree. So that was at a junior college. I think it was a year. I did a year of courses, and then boom, I got to San Diego State, and I just again, I was just knocking out classes. I was a police officer because this is you remember the recession in end of 2008, 2009.
Oh,
That was when it was a big deal to have a job. So the department, they offered me a job, and I was like, it was funny because I was with a buddy that I didn't really want to be a cop. That wasn't like my thing.
yeah.
After getting out of the military, I was kind of like, I'm done wearing a uniform, carrying a gun, all that. I'm done with it. But one of my buddies was like, "Hey, dude, I'm going to take the academic test for the police department, and I don't want to go and stand there alone." So he's like, "Hey, just sign up so we can go and just, you know, talk and while we're waiting." I was like, "All right, whatever." So I went and I passed the test, and then they invited me to do the physical fitness test. I passed that, and then they invited me for like the polygraph. And I was like, okay, this is getting serious, right? Like they're actually really considering me. So I passed the polygraph, and then my buddy ended up failing the polygraph.
Oh,
And I was like, damn, dude, like I wasn't even looking for this job, but I'll take it, right? We're in a recession. So yeah, so I got hired by them, and I was concurrent. At the same time, I was a police officer. I was also going to San Diego State. And that was rough. I was working at least 40 hours a week. A lot of times I would sign up for an overtime gig. So I would do like a DUI checkpoint or whatever on my off days because they needed officers, and you make good money. But then I was going to classes too. So yeah, that was a rough couple of years. But yeah, I made it through. I got my degree in business financial services, and ended up leaving the department a few months after graduating, and I was working for like a mortgage company, and then I was working for doing some like real estate stuff, and I was like, wearing a suit and tie and answering phones and on the computer, and I said, man, this sucks. I don't like this at all.
wasn't what you thought it
So I ended
was.
up yeah, you're making money and everything, but it was not fun. It wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I ended up my sister and I we booked a trip to Europe, and we backpacked. She only did it for, I don't know, 10 days or 14 days, but I ended up doing 2 months in Europe just with a backpack and just jumping on a train. And I went to 20 different countries. I don't know. I don't know what it was, but it was just like, it was fun. And I realized, damn, I kind of like Europe. It's cool. Some good looking women out here. And, like it's fun to see all this history, because the United States, we don't have nearly as much history as Europe, or at least documented history, like maybe in Boston, in New York, you have that. It goes back, what, 400 years or so. But, you go to Rome, and this is like 2,000 years old.
Yep.
So it's really incredible to see all these things that you've seen on TV and in encyclopedias and whatnot. And then you see it in real life, and you're like, wow, dude, this is awesome. It's awesome. So, yeah, eventually. I was in the United States, and I met my wife, who's from the Netherlands, like outside of Amsterdam. And
Wait,
yeah,
you
we
met her
we
in the
started.
States though?
So she was working on her PhD, and her supervisor, I don't know what they call it, supervisor, I guess,
Yeah.
said, "Hey, we have an opportunity. If you want to go teach math over the summer in North America, you can go, and we'll fund it." And that gave her an opportunity to travel in Canada. I think she went to Ohio and Tennessee and eventually California, Southern California, and into Mexico. So yeah, we met when she stopped in San Diego. We met and hit it off, and we stayed in touch. And then, yeah, man, I guess the rest is history. So next thing you know, we got married, and I moved in January of 2019. I moved to Amsterdam because she started working after completing her PhD. She started working as a consultant, and for me, I was working security gigs or whatever, and it was like, eh, she has a career, I have a job,
Yeah.
but she has a career, so let's go to Amsterdam. And yeah, I've been living there kind of ever since. And yeah, it's a unique thing as an American living there, especially when I come to the United States and I tell people, well, yeah, I'm from California, but I actually live in Amsterdam. They're just like, oh, what? But yeah, it's really cool. It's unique, and I'm definitely glad I've had the experience. I do miss the United States sometimes, for sure. But yeah, we have two kids, and for like continuity with their education and everything right now, it just makes better sense to stay there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean, and that's how,
Yeah.
like, what do you think of like well, maybe this is too personal of a question, but like the educational system over here versus there.
I don't know, man. It's weird. So over there, I'm not saying this is a good thing or a bad thing, but over there, kids don't have homework until I think seventh or eighth grade. Like until they're 12 or 13, that's when they start doing homework. And I know for me, I had homework for forever
Yeah.
while I was in school, right? We just had homework. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's like I don't know. I mean, the thing about the Netherlands and a lot of Western Europe is that they're known for being highly educated. So I think, yeah, I don't know that it's necessarily a bad thing. I know that the kids are, when they get out of school, they can just go play. And I personally, I believe that a child's ability to play, that ends up just being beneficial later, for sure. I think that that being able to bring those to build those social networks is a
Yeah.
really really good thing. um I don't know, in terms of education, yeah, a lot of people there, whereas in the United States I've seen people my age, or like in their 20s and 30s, a lot of them have master's degrees at a minimum. Whereas in the United States, all you need is a bachelor's, right? Like a bachelor's is kind of like the new high school diploma, sort of. So so yeah, you can, here you can get a bachelor's degree and you can function, right? You can find a job, and they don't need a master's. Over there, kind of only having a bachelor's degree, it's kind of like
You're not
it
qualified for
seems like,
much.
you need a little more, right? Like it's
Yeah.
almost like what would be equivalent to just going to a junior college here, maybe, kind of looked at that way, right? Like, not that there's something wrong with it. It's better than just high school, but yeah. So yeah, a lot of people have master's degrees there. And yeah, they're I feel like they're they definitely have their own political perspectives on things.
Hmm.
And I would say that there's definitely like a kind of left leaning bias.
Yeah.
Um, but nonetheless, you definitely, you meet people that are educated, and they can talk a lot of history and art, and I mean, they're generally, I would say, they're pretty smart people just in general.
Yeah, well, and having that base book knowledge there too. I mean, that's it seems to be more and more, well, I mean, relevant, but also the amount of information that you can have at your fingertips these days. but there's two sides of it as well, I guess. Like, as I'm saying this, I'm also thinking of the fact that within the information and stuff that you get online, and we talked about this earlier, the fact that not all of it is not all of it's real, or a lot of it has bias in it, or
Yeah,
the
true.
fact that proper journalism and stuff is kind of at stake with some of these things, and presenting that full spectrum picture, or hey, these are the facts, and let the reader make up their mind. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's times when I just wish there wasn't any lean, not right or left. It was just like, hey, here's the facts. There was a bombing on this day at this place, and we believe it was carried out by this guy.
yeah.
And then whatever, like don't put any other spin on it about race or politics or religion or whatever. Just these are just the facts. This is all we know, and here's the footage or whatever.
A lot of it plays on emotions these days. They play on that
Yeah,
emotions because
absolutely.
that's what gets your views or your your clicks. And that's a measurable metric, as opposed to, hey, this is the news, this is what happened, this is what we know right now, and here's the facts. That doesn't really sell so much. But
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because a lot of times people want to. It's like confirmation bias. They want to hear what they believe, right? So that's what I'm going to watch. But yeah, I mean, I kind of personally, I deliberately, I'll try to watch, the American news stations from many different networks just to
yeah,
kind of get a better overall perspective of what actually occurred. But
I had another guest on that said the same thing, the exact same
yeah,
thing.
there's always going to be a bias, but if you can listen to a left-wing bias and a right-wing bias, hopefully you can kind of synthesize that into your own personal opinion about what occurred, right?
So back to the Soldier Fortune. Like, where does that pick up?
So, I ended up during my wife's PhD, she studied at Oxford, and I went and lived with her for 3 months out there. And while we were living there, one of her roommates had her boyfriend visiting, and her boyfriend just happened to work for Forbes magazine. So I was just downstairs, I think, eating breakfast or lunch or something, and he comes downstairs and he's like, "Hey, what's up, man?" I was like, "Hey, what's up?" And he's like, "Where are you from?" I said, "Oh, San Diego." And he's like, "Oh, really? I'm from. I think he's from like L.A." And we kind of start chit chatting, and he's like, "Are you a veteran?" I said, "Yeah." "How do you know?" And he's like, "Oh, I don't know. You just have that vibe about you, whatever." I was like, "Yeah, yeah. I was a Iraq, Afghanistan. I was a airborne infantry." He's like, "Oh, really?" And so he was actually a DOD civilian that served in Afghanistan as well. I think he did a year there, and he was working under a general, I believe, and he was putting together like the statistical reports
Okay.
to try to kind of interpret what the enemy was doing, and potentially where the enemy may be heading, or what they may be doing next, like where they're going to emplace IEDs or where the next attacks may come from. So yeah, it was pretty interesting that he had that experience. So then next thing you know, he's like, "Well, hey man, I have my own little online journal. If you're interested in just writing a story, just tell me a story about Afghanistan. I'll look at it, and I'll get it published." So I was like, "Yeah, cool, whatever." I hadn't written anything since like college, just since the last term paper or whatever I had to do. So yeah, I just wrote up a story about the first time we had made like real not like rocket attacks, but actual, like, out in the field we made contact, and it was about yeah, the first IED. And yeah, three of my buddies or four of my buddies had to be medevaced. One of them, his arm got blown off. Another one had really bad shrapnel on his face. Another one had shrapnel also on his face and lost his eye. Um, um, yeah, so I kind of just described that, and wrote about how that went down. And then he published it a few days later, and I just remember seeing it and thinking, wow, this is cool. Like, this story that I just told, it's accessible to anybody in the world.
Yeah.
They can read about this story. And I thought, wow, like, I can tell not only my story in the military, but I can tell the guys I serve with. This gives me a platform to tell their story too. And yeah, I started writing more, and then I realized, okay, it's cool. This guy's got his own little online journal, but then I realized it's little, right? It's kind
Yeah.
of small. So I thought maybe I can do this on my own, and I can send it to a bigger audience. And then I remembered, as a kid, my father read Soldier of Fortune, so I was like, I'm just going to write something up and I'll send it to Soldier of Fortune. Maybe they'll publish it, right? So I found the editor email, and yeah, I sent it out. And then next thing you know, I had seen a documentary on the border, um, and I think it was called Cartel Land. And one of
Okay.
the guys that they interviewed, he's like, it's not a militia, but it's a group of guys that like get together and they go down to the border and they just observe and report what they see, and then they give it to the feds, right? To the border patrol or the sheriff, the local government, whatever. So I just um connected with him on Facebook, and I was like, and he happened to be a former 82nd Airborne paratrooper too, I think in the 80s. So I was like, hey man, I'm a former paratrooper. I did Iraq, Afghanistan. I was 504. Um, I, I, I've written for Soldier of Fortune. I'm wondering if I can come out with you guys for an operation, just to write about what I see. And he's like, yeah, sure, come on out. So I packed up my vehicle and, I went out to the mountains for, I don't know, a week or whatever. And yeah, like they're all like out there wearing like the camouflage and everything. And yeah, it was crazy because we're doing like, I was going out with a fire team, or not really a fire team, but just kind of a little going out with a couple, 2 or 3 guys
Yeah.
onto
Small
an
element.
OP. Yeah, very small elements. And we would go up to an OP, and we're just watching cartel. Like, it's crazy because you're out there and the cartel is there just 100 meters, 150 meters from the border. And they've got AK-47s and they've got pistols, and they're on top of the hills, like in a bunker complex.
Oh,
And I'm like, this is not Mexican military or Mexican police. This is this drug cartel fighters
yeah.
that are just in the open. They own that area. And yeah, like here I've got pictures of it and video and stuff, and I just thought, man, it's just crazy, right? Like, but you don't see this stuff on like CNN, like they don't cover this stuff. And eventually, I had guys that were so there's a difference between somebody who's just trying to enter the United States illegally, what they carry. They usually have small backpacks or like plastic bags or whatever, just enough to get some food and water and just to get to the pickup point.
Yeah.
But when you see the guys with the big packs on their backs, like these are like rucksacks almost, like they're big. Those are the guys moving dope. And you'll go there and see them as they're lining up on the border wall. You can see them as they're getting ready to cross, and they'll have scouts. They'll already have cartel scouts on the north side in the United States that go up to the mountain, and they're watching. They're scanning the hilltops and the mountains to see when border patrol's coming. And when border patrol like goes down whatever, this gulch or that gulch, or this depression, it's like, oh yeah, you can see them on the road heading back north. So hey, move the guys now, and you can intercept the radio traffic. So it's like crazy, right? It's just crazy stuff that you see out there. Yeah, and then boom, like you've got 10 guys with packs, they're crossing in.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's pretty awesome, some of the stuff that you're able to see out there, and you realize, this is kind of its own little war zone. Some of these dudes are carrying AK-47s. They've got pistols, knives. They're ready, right? They're ready for a fight. Um, so yeah, started writing about that stuff, and yeah, those articles did really, really well with the Soldier of Fortune audience. Um, and then yeah, I started writing more and more, and then some of it would be like combat stories from my own personal experiences in Iraq and Afghanistan, or parachuting stories, and
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. And then I started doing interviews with people, book reviews. I did an article about Africa, the um what's it called, like the wildlife preserves out there,
Okay, yeah, yeah.
In the Congo.
Poaching and stuff like that.
Yeah, to stop the poachers
Okay.
and the illegal mining and yeah, just I've done a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff. I went to Bosnia and I saw some graffiti that was pro Wagner, the Wagner group,
Oh,
and I ended up writing an article about just about the Wagner group and how they have a support base in Bosnia. It's just like crazy stuff that I'll see these opportunities and I'll just I'll write about it. And yeah, Soldier of Fortune, like I said, most of the stuff they're gonna publish it. They really like the stuff that I come up with.
what makes them great is because these are the stories that they're not getting otherwise. Like if they didn't follow the Soldier of Fortune end of things, they wouldn't see this stuff. So I mean, it's great that there's an outlet like that out there, putting out the real news. And then I think that it's probably a little different just because of the base of who they have reporting on this stuff. It's uh, is all of the staff over there, and I haven't done a ton of research on this, but is all the staff over there pretty much former veterans, or they just get them embedded in those type of situations and stuff? Because I know that it takes a special kind of person to be watching cartel rat lines and stuff cross over, and or jumping into Bosnia.
Yeah, I think most of them, from what I know, most of them are vets. Not
Yeah,
all of them, but most of them have a veteran background or like law enforcement. They were former police or whatever, like paramilitary kind of.
yeah,
Um, yeah, but yeah, I think the fact that a lot of the stuff that the Soldier of Fortune guys write is firsthand experience. It's not just stuff that people tell them or
yep.
that they're gleaning from this or that. Like it's just not like when I go out there, I'm just telling you what I see. It's firsthand, right? So I think that's another thing that Soldier of Fortune readers like really appreciate.
Yeah, no, I know it's something that I do. It's hard to find. Sometimes you do have to wade through some of the stuff to find the real story, or to be able to know the truth behind something. You'll hear something. I think it was when the Russian Ukraine stuff first. Well, not first started kicking off, but not the Crimea side of things, but the more recent end of things. And I had a friend of mine that I had deployed with who he was Ukrainian and had family still over there. But I fought with him in Afghanistan, trusted the guy and everything. And I'm like, hey, like what's really going on over there? And some of the stuff that he told me, and everything, and I was just like, good God, man, like people just they don't see that end.
Yeah, I actually, I just recently did a book review for it was about Wagner specifically, and yeah, like their time in Ukraine, some of the stuff I'm like, phew, it's crazy. Like they talk about meat grinders, and they're sending like these Russian prisoners are like, well, hey, I've got a 10-year sentence for robbery, but if I survive 6 months with Wagner, I'll be free. So they yeah, it's like, damn man, like some of the stuff, but a lot of times like they'll use those prisoners because they're not like military trained, right? They do a 2-week crash course
Yeah.
and then they're just sent to the front lines. And a lot of times the commanders send them in as into a meat grinder,
Oh,
but that's to kind of loosen up the enemy or the Ukrainians, right? So after they find out where the Ukrainian positions are, then they can call in artillery and then have follow-on forces go take them out. So they just use them as pawns basically.
yeah.
And if you happen to survive, great, good for you. Just do your half a year and then you're back, you're going home. But I feel like the mortality rate is very high amongst those guys.
Would definitely see it. I mean, that's you're taking your chances there, and that's at the same time too is you're looking at someone that desperate, doesn't have the training. This is how you end up things like war crimes, and it's not even
Oh yeah.
man.
Yeah, I mean war crimes there, it's just I feel like they're very common. Yeah, it's but who's gonna stop them, right? Yeah. Who's gonna go there and stop them? It doesn't matter, right? Like they can do whatever they want. It's not like
Yeah.
they're gonna send a local police force to the Russian front line to go arrest some Russian guy for executing a Ukrainian prisoner, right? It doesn't
Well,
it's just
and
not gonna happen.
the extreme history of hate there as well between the two. So I mean, it's kind of understandable as well. Not understandable, but it's understandable to see where that escalates to when you're looking at things like where they're talking about death squads and, the atrocities on one end, to where maybe there's some guys that surrender, and whether the Russians or the Ukrainians, either side, it happens on both sides, to where,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But yeah, like you hear
um,
about this stuff and
yeah,
you think, at least I think, man, I'm glad I served in the American Army, where like not to say this stuff never happens, but it certainly doesn't happen with as often in the American side as it does on the Russian or Ukrainian side, man. Like they hate each other. They
yeah,
really, really do.
yeah. I
Uh,
definitely say we're set apart on the morality aspect of it, or at least in that
yeah,
way, to
and
where you look at it, humanity.
even how they treat like the dead bodies
Yeah,
in the United States, when we have a dead American, we cover the body, and we will put the body into the Humvee, and then we drive it back, make sure that it's taken care of, and there's always another soldier there with the body.
yeah,
It's very like respectful there. They'll just leave the body on the street.
yeah,
They'll leave the exploded vehicles and stuff. They're just left right there where they were destroyed. And it's crazy because I remember, you probably saw this in Afghanistan. You would see, like, we would be going down a a trail or a road, and there's just some old Russian or Soviet, tank that was destroyed, and like, whatever. You don't see a lot of that. A lot of American equipment and stuff, when it's destroyed, we recover it.
yep,
We don't want all of our stuff just left out there for the enemy to see, and to take the technology, like whatever technological advance they can from it. But yeah, like over there, it's just nothing to see a bunch of old Russian tanks and stuff that were destroyed and left on the road. And like, oh, well, who's gonna clean it up?
well, that was what was it, Poland recently? They had somebody, I guess what is it, a T-55? He was caught running through the streets of Poland in a T-55.
Yeah, I saw that video. Yeah, it's crazy, right?
It's
Crazy stuff.
absolutely wild. I can't even imagine. Like, I mean, just what in the hell? But so, I mean, what's the if someone were to, I guess, start down that path, you know, uh, what's your advice? Just start writing. I mean, immerse yourself into it, reading.
Yeah, yeah, like I mentioned earlier, I don't have a background in journalism. Like,
Yeah,
my education is not in journalism. But yeah, you kind of just like, it's kind of just, the more you do something, the better you get. And
yeah,
I've looked at some of my writing from a few years ago, just like, for whatever reason, I would check it out, and I just remember thinking, oh man, I should have wrote this instead or that instead. So now my writing, I feel like it's a lot more concise, and it's just clean, right? It kind of flows better. But yeah, I would say just do it, right? Like what I did, just find kind of your little niche, and then just focus on it, and write and write and write, and send it out to big publications. Maybe you get lucky and they'll publish it,
yeah,
you know? And yeah, you're not necessarily going to be making money, but like eventually that could come,
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, just kind of get your name out there, and just send it into to if you like to do hiking, and you like to do hiking trails, maybe send it into a magazine that focuses on like outdoor life and stuff like that, right? Or tactical stuff. Yeah, like something. There's lots of like kind of veteran owned things that have that. They focus on weapon, or you like to shoot guns, do write up about, like, oh yeah, I just got myself a new Glock, and here's how it feels, here's the aesthetics, and just write about something that you like, a topic that you like and that about. Because I can sit here with you, and me and you can just talk about the infantry.
yep,
We know the acronyms, we know the deployment tempos, and we can talk, right? So like, that's why I was like, well, I'm going to go down that way, and I can talk police, I can talk security. I do security stuff. So it's stuff that I know about, stuff that I'm comfortable talking about. It's not stuff that I need to go look up oh, what is this definition? Oh, what is he talking? No, like I can just sit here and BS with you, and we just know the lingo. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I would say for anybody interested in that stuff, or interested in writing, kind of find your niche and then develop it. You know?
It's exactly like what you were talking about before on how that you can expound on something. So here's someone who's like let's write something for would you write something for my blog, this small time blog on something, and you sort of found your way into it there. I mean, is that really what ended up lighting the passion for writing about this stuff in there, is just seeing like, oh wow, like this, people are listening out there. I put something
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. Like some of the stuff I write, some of it doesn't get a lot of attention. I think that part of that's just the algorithm, but other stuff I'll get hundreds of thousands of views, and I'm like, wow, man, like this little 2-page article I wrote
Yeah.
has reached thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So it really I don't know, motivates me to just do more. And it's crazy because I try to write about stuff that matters to me, like veteran issues and like border security. Those are big things for me. So yeah, it's really like it's a motivating factor to write about that stuff.
Yeah. The
If I was trying to write about horticulture, I don't know anything
you'd
about
be
that,
lost in
right?
the
That's
sauce.
not a passion,
Yeah.
right? You need to, like, guys that are interested, they need to write about stuff, even guns. I know kind of typical American military weapons,
Yep.
right? But if you start showing me Russian weapons or Chinese weapons or I don't know, just stuff from other manufacturers, I'll be honest, I'm not that familiar with it because I don't consider myself a gun nut. I have a couple guns, but it's just the stuff that I carry on duty,
Yeah.
or it was stuff that I knew from the military. But
Yep.
if some of these guys, they know the lingo of guns, right? They know all the different calibers and the grain weights and like the max effective range of this and that and the other. And like, I don't know anything about that stuff. I know kind of the basics, man. 9 mil, 40 cal, 45, and then 5.56, 7.62. Like that's it, right?
Yeah.
But I'm just not one of those guys that cares that much about guns. I like to go shooting here and there, but I know guys that they've got like 100 different guns.
Oh,
Like no joke, they have like 100 different guns. And to me, it's kind of silly. Like, what? You only got two hands, right? Like, how many guns can you shoot? Right? So yeah. But I mean, if that's your thing, if that's your interest, yeah, maybe write about that and just talk about why you like this gun or that gun, whatever. But
so what's your favorite story to write about?
yeah, I really enjoy just going down to the border and doing the border stories.
Yeah.
I don't know when I don't know if this group down there is going to do another op anytime soon because the border, from what I'm hearing, is basically secure, and they started rebuilding the wall, and um, I know like the contacts have gone down like 96 or 97%. So I really don't think that if I was to go out there now, like there'd be much going on, to be honest. But yeah, aside from that, I enjoy yeah, just writing about like my personal experiences in Iraq and Afghanistan. Yeah, I recently did an article or an interview with Marco Krohn. He received the Military Order of William, which is equivalent. It's the Dutch equivalent of the American Medal of Honor.
Yep.
So he's a really cool guy. He had an interesting story for sure, and I'm hoping to do a follow up with him. But I've had a lot of other stuff going on because I'm in the process of trying to get my Dutch like passport.
Yeah.
So I've been actively studying Dutch for the past few months, trying to pass all these tests. So yeah, I've had other stuff going on, but yeah, I passed everything now, so now I can hopefully start concentrating on writing more again. But yeah, the book review I did on your book, that those are always fun too. And I usually get a free book out of it. I have a nice little book collection with all kinds of cool books. Um, yeah, I'm looking forward. I don't know when your next book's coming out, but I'm looking forward to reading it.
That's actually, I was gonna say, I know like from mine, like after there in mine, at least I talked about there was another company that was across the river from us and was actually another platoon. It was second platoon
Oh
Charlie
yeah,
company. Did I tell you
yeah,
about
yeah,
it?
yeah.
Devil's Playground?
I want to say you sent me an excerpt from it
Huh?
a couple months ago. It was just two, three, four paragraphs, and yeah, I just like yeah, I thought, wow, that's some good writing, really good writing. Yeah,
Andrew has a gift there, and that is I'll have to talk to him, get you two linked up and get you a copy of that, because those two, they really go hand in hand, quite honestly. Just the fact that um and there's more
yeah.
stuff that's coming down the road from it, but we're talking about possibly doing a collab for a follow up and getting something in the works that's a lot bigger of a scope. So I'll keep you in the loop for it.
Yeah, if I can, I mean, I wasn't there with you guys, but if I can be a part of it, that's great. In any way, even just writing a book review, that'd be cool. I don't know if you want to include this, but I'm doing a parachute jump in Florida. I came across this group. It's called Phantom Airborne Brigade.
Okay.
So these dudes, they're all veterans. They're all American veterans. And if you can prove like you went to jump school, you can join. You have to have airborne wings though. And this is just a group of veterans that do round canopy jumps, like static line
Oh,
jumps. So in about 2.5 weeks, I'm flying out to Florida and I'm doing a jump into a lake. So they do land jumps as well, but I mentioned that I broke my
yeah,
legs.
bad
So I'm
experience. Yeah.
done. I'm done with land jumps. But I was like, dude, if I can do a water jump, I'll do a water jump. Hell yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm going to be out there. That'll probably be my next story. I'm going to write about that. And they do it in an old C-47 that actually carried American paratrooper from the 82nd paratroopers into World War II. They did jumps out of this plane in World War II.
No
It's
kidding.
pretty cool.
That is
It's
pretty
pretty
cool.
yeah, it's pretty awesome. And yeah, I mean, you or any of your buddies, with airborne wings, you guys can join.
What
You know,
what side of Florida is it? Because I know a few people down there.
right outside of Orlando.
No kidding. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just came across it and it's crazy because I was like, hey, I just saw your organization. Can I get on a manifest for a water jump? And he's like, oh, bro, sorry, man, it's already full. And I was like, all right, well, I write for Soldier of Fortune. So if I ever get on the manifest, I'll write up a story. And he's
Yeah.
like, oh, hey, I'll put you on. I was like, all right, perfect,
You got that
So
strap
yeah,
Hank
I got a
slot.
slot. Yeah, I got a slot for May, so I'm happy about that. And then I'm trying to get another one in August if I can come out from Europe because I'll be back in Europe by then.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully I'll be jumping in August. And yeah, tell your buddies about it. You know,
I absolutely will. No, I've got a few of them already in mind that I'll have to. I'm gonna look up the organization and put them in touch for sure. I'm gonna have to check that out
yeah.
too. I I did I ever tell you about my last jump in division?
I don't think so.
So I had a cigarette roll out the door. I jump out and I'm coming down. I'm counting in my head and I'm like, man, this don't feel right. And I look up and back and I just see like a streamer waving, and I'm like, oh my God, like this, of
Oh,
course, on my last jump in
yeah.
division, this is the last one to bring me up to pay. I didn't even want to go. I told him to take, I was like, you know what, just take my pay at this point. I don't care. I
Yeah.
think I was 10 days out from out processing, and they're like, no, you're going, we're going to get you that airborne pay. And here's in my mind, I'm like,
Yeah.
here we go. Last jump in division. Like,
This is the one I'm gonna burn in.
burn in,
Yeah.
baby.
Did you throw the reserve?
Oh, heck yeah. I pulled the reserve. I was like,
Okay. Yeah.
what are they going to do? And, it's funny because I was waiting on the ground, like after I hit, I was waiting for them to say something. The FLA comes burning over and they're like, um, you know, hey man, you all right? Good. All right. And they just go taking off down to the,
Yeah.
to the next possible injury, I guess.
Yeah. I remember one time, I don't know why, but when I had jumped out, I was like my chute I couldn't tell if my chute had opened all the way because I had so many twists.
Yep.
And I was like, damn, man, I don't know if I should throw my reserve or not. Cause when it opens, you look up, make sure it's a full canopy.
Yeah.
but I was so twisted that I kept pulling. It was like 15 times I spun around,
Oh.
and finally it was full, and I was like, oh, because otherwise I would have had to throw the reserve. But no, I was lucky. I never had any entanglements or anything, so that worked out well.
Well, and that was on a T10.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, if it was back in
No,
2008 and
what's
stuff,
the
I
new
don't.
one? Is that the T11?
The new one, the square one, is the T11, and
No, I never did a square.
Yeah.
I always did the round canopy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and
Yeah.
same, and the rate of descent is much different on the two. I've jumped T11. I think it was only once. It might have been twice. But
Are they nicer? Is it a softer landing?
it's a softer landing, but the thing's a sky bus. I honestly, I like the MC6 jumps because there's a round canopy. You have forward 6 knots. You got your toggles and everything. I know that they were running them in Swick for the longest time until they had so many injuries because of so many people running with the wind, and it's.
Oh.
I got the good advice from someone to where I'm like, well, hey, how do I? And he's like, look, just act like it's a T10, and notice what direction you're going, and then just turn around. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. No problem. Good advice. Keep it simple.
Yeah,
never had a problem.
But that's why I was like, hey, if I can get on a water jump, I don't need to worry about any of that. It doesn't matter, right? Like, yeah, I'm not worried about a hard landing anymore. And then they have boats. There's just volunteers out there that pick you up in the boats. So yeah, I don't know. I think it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, dude, it'd be cool if we can meet out there, do a jump together.
That'd be hella cool. I mean, yeah. I'd be down. It'd have to be something like that to get me to jump out of a plane again. So.
Yeah. I talked to one of my buddies who actually lives in Orlando, and I was like, hey, are you gonna do a jump with Phantom Airborne? And he's like, man, I did 20 years, and these land jumps are hard on the legs, man. So I don't know if I do one, I'll do the water, and that's where I'm at too. Like, I'm not doing a land jump, but I'll do a few water jumps. I think that's cool.
Yeah, heck yeah. But, I'm game for whatever, honestly.
How many jumps do you have?
Oh man, I think I have around 40 something on my actual jump log.
Oh wow!
But I've got more.
That's good.
I've got more.
Yeah. Okay. No, you have quite a bit, man.
A decent amount. They would just shove me onto them. A lot of times
Oh, but you did a lot of time in Swick, right?
I did. Believe it or not, though.
So you did a bunch of jumps with Swick?
I did a bunch with them too.
Oh, okay.
Those are the ones that they actually properly logged. That's probably why I have so many actually logged on there, because the 82nd, like the only ones that they ever logged for us were the ones that counted for pay. So sometimes, there was months where you jump a few times and they're just like, we're doing the follow-on missions.
Yeah. If you got the pay, if you're not pay hurt, then whatever, we're not going to log it because it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Exactly. Which was kind of weird to me, because it was like down the road when you look at injuries and stuff, like your instance and everything. And I'm sure that all of them, every single one of them, whenever I go to the VA or something and I say, they're like, well, what'd you do? Airborne infantry. And they're like, oh, okay, knees and back. And I'm anytime, so it's a common thing with that. So you would think that they'd want that jump log to be, really detailed.
Or guys that are trying to make a career and become a jump master.
Yeah.
The more jumps they have, the better. It makes it easier to, because I don't remember for jump master, what do you need? 50 or 100 and however many nighttime. And, I don't remember.
Things change around. And I think I definitely had the qualifications to be able to go for jump master. And I know when I cycled back around, it's either that or I was close. When I cycled back around to the 82nd, they wanted to send me over there. Yeah, I mean, it's the 82nd. I was game, but at the same time, I had my sights set somewhere else.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like the 82nd is a really unique division because that's one of the few, I think, divisions where you can do 20 years there.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of other Army units, you'll do 2, 3, 4 years, and then you do another enlistment and you go somewhere else, and then you go somewhere else and somewhere else. But, I met dudes that were 82nd for 20 years.
Yeah.
That was it. They didn't know anything about Korea or Fort Campbell or Hawaii or Vicenza, whatever. It was just, no, dude, I did 20 years in the 82nd.
It's Airborne Mafia.
That's their whole Army experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they actually, and I'd have to talk to one of my one of the people I served with in the past and stuff, because I know he said that some things changed with that, and they actually got in trouble for some of that because they were sheltering from orders people. But it was, I mean, they like to keep good people, and you can't blame them for that, because if you've ever met anybody outside of Airborne, I did a little bit of reserve time, and it was in another Airborne unit, but I've worked with and met other people that were in the leg units and everything, and I know they joke around about it all the time, but there is something different to be said about an airborne soldier. There really is.
Oh,
Let's face it.
yeah, it's funny. We had a guy, I believe it was after Afghanistan. When we came back to the States, and the guys were ETSing,
Yeah.
and we were getting the new guys that come in. We had a guy that came from, is it Second ID from Korea?
Yeah.
I think it's
I think you might be right there.
I don't remember, but anyways, he had done 4 years in Korea. Never got in trouble, never did anything wrong, no Article 15, nothing, just a good soldier, right?
Yeah.
So this dude re-enlisted, and he wanted to be airborne. So he re-enlisted for 82nd Airborne, Fort Bragg. So this dude comes to our unit, and the poor guy, man, he didn't understand, like, the whole army is not how it is in Korea. Like, he got to the 82nd, and it was just discipline, 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 discipline.
Yep.
And, dress right, dress. And, everything was just, this is Army, this is 82nd Airborne.
Yeah.
Our attitude is like, we're the best, period. We're the best. We do it right. So he's getting smoked, and sergeants are yelling. He's an E4. I think he was E4P. And so he was our NBC guy.
Oh.
And this dude, like I said, never got in trouble, never been in trouble his first 4 years. He got to the 82nd. He failed the first drug test, and he was like, I'm out. I'm done, man. And he took a chapter, or like an OTH or whatever. He just said, I don't want to be here. I'm done. And just, I think he pissed hot twice, actually. And they said, all right, you're out of here, man. Because he was like, I can't take this. I can't take this, dude. I can't live like this. Because I think he re-upped for 3 or 4 years, and
Oh man.
he was like, nah, bro, I'm done.
It's definitely it's a high stress atmosphere, and there's people that thrive in it, and there's people where it will freaking crush your soul.
Yeah. And for me, I had gone from, basic training to airborne school, infantry school, airborne school, and then I was SWIC.
Yep.
Which is like, you got to be a bit more tough than the average everyday infantryman to go SWIC. And then, I went to the 82nd. So all I knew really was the dress right dress.
Yep.
And just discipline. I had been, my whole career up to that point was just, oh, I'm getting smoked again. Okay, well, whatever. That's typical. Like, that's just how the Army is. And I remember when I got to the 82nd, the sergeant major came in and greeted all of us. And
Yeah.
he's like, listen up, man. In my unit, if you're not miserable, you're wrong. I was like, all right, whatever. Like, it is what it is.
Yep.
But it was just like getting us ready for, like, dude, this isn't fun. This isn't a fun thing. You're here to be war fighters.
Yeah.
And expect to be miserable quite a bit. So yeah, I think that dude that signed up from Korea was just like not expecting that type of discipline and order and just constant schedule. Like, he wasn't ready.
I totally get that. That's and then, well, on the outside too, it's even, man, with the book publisher and everything, they put out a date, and I stuck to it, and I expected them to stick to it. And when it came to it, they were kind of like, oh, we just sort of expected for you to push it like we do with everyone. And I'm like, oh no, it's go time. Like, we are moving.
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of companies, they like to work with veterans, because veterans are used to the structure, and like, hey, if it has to be done at this time, that's what time it's going to be done. Oh, I have to work late. Well, whatever. It's the mission, right? Mission accomplishment. That's it. So I think a lot of companies appreciate that, from kind of that. They get that attitude from a lot of veterans now.
I think so as well. I definitely do. Hey, Heath, man, it's been good talking, man. I hope that I hope to see you on one of these jumps. Honestly, that might be
Yeah,
something cool.
man.
We'll have to.
I'll send you when I finish my article. I'll send you the article. Feel free to share it on your social media network. And yeah, maybe we can link up. You can well, like I said, you've already got your parachute wings, so you're qualified. And yeah, that'd be cool. Maybe see you in August.
That'd be amazing. I know there's someone out here this way. They kind of do the same thing to where if you were in an airborne unit and you have your old jump log, they were literally, it's a skydive company. Cause I asked them, I'm like, hey, I don't want to jump tandem. Is there anything? And they were like, no, man, you're former, you're a veteran, former airborne. You got your old jump log? I'm like, yeah. What do you got on there? And I told them, 40 some odd jumps. And, oh no, you're good. Just bring me the jump log down. We'll write it off on there and we'll get you out. I'm like, all right.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
but hey, man, hang tight. I want to ask you about something afterwards. But I thank you for coming on, man, and taking the time. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's actually been pretty fun. Just talking shop. It's always fun to talk to former paratroopers.
Yeah, man, it really is. It's always a good time to catch up with somebody who is also crazy enough to jump out of a perfectly good airplane.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Veteran Success Story. If you liked some of what Heath had to talk about, or possibly some of the things that he talked about piqued your interest, go and take a look at Soldier of Fortune magazine. Also look him up in there. His name is Heath Hansen. I'll put him in the description links and a link to Soldier of Fortune and their digital side of what they have. And you can check out Heath and his portfolio and everything that he's been doing on there and getting out stories and some of the pictures he's got. It's phenomenal work. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Tell a friend, like and subscribe so that I can continue to keep this free. Because information, honestly, and these days, information, it should be free. This stuff should be free to be out there. I'm not going to run a Patreon or anything like that. But you guys got to help me out in liking, subscribing, and telling other people about it so that the word spreads and that I can grow this thing without having to monetize on the platform, because that's not something I want to do. I know when I'm listening to a podcast, I don't want to hear ads constantly popping up. I know they're necessary for some of this stuff. Maybe one day it'll end up going that route, but I hope to keep it in a way to where it's not distracting from the content. So join me again for another episode next week. I have somebody else coming on that you guys are really going to enjoy. So tell your friends, like and subscribe so you don't miss that episode. And until next time, this has been yet another Veteran Success Story.